Hello, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the Israeli Prime Minister finally goes through police questioning. Hamas lashes out at Israel for refusing to return the bodies of terrorists, and ILTV gets an inside look at how an Israeli superstar is singing for peace. I'm Natasha Kirchak here with the latest news in Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is cooperating with a police investigation into suspicions of his conduct while firmly denying any wrongdoing. The premier was questioned for 3 hours by a team of senior police officers at his Balfour Street residence in Jerusalem last night. After the interrogation earlier, the country's Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit officially confirmed for the first time that he himself ordered the criminal probe. But all he'll say is that the Prime Minister is suspected of having received improper benefits from businessmen. The local press has been reporting that Netanyahu and members of his family are accused of illegally accepting a number of valuable gifts from two individuals, one of whom is Israeli and the other from abroad. Media speculation is that the World Jewish Congress president is a foreign businessman in question. As of now, no charges have been filed, but if the case goes forward, such activity could include a breach of trust or graft. Police say there have been no allegations or bribery. The Prime Minister firmly denies the allegations. Just ahead of the interrogation, Netanyahu told his Likud faction that he did nothing wrong and blamed the media for instigating the probe.
אנחנו הרי שמים לב לכל הפרסומים בתקשורת, אנחנו שומעים את הרוח החגיגית והרוח המנשבת באולפני הטלוויזיה, במסדרונות האופוזיציה. אני רוצה להגיד להם, חכו עם החגיגות, אל תמהרו. אמרתי לכם ואני חוזר ואומר לכם, לא יהיה כלום כי אין כלום. אתם תמשיכו להפריח בלונים עם אוויר חם, ואנחנו נמשיך להוביל את מדינת ישראל.
The police have reportedly taken testimony from some 50 people in the case. It's expected that the Prime Minister will be subjected to additional rounds of questioning before a decision is taken on whether to indict. With me now is ILTV's Steve Leibowitz, who has been closely following the criminal investigation of the Prime Minister. So, Steve, is this a serious matter or is it a lot of noise about nothing, in your opinion?
Well, it's a lot more serious than Prime Minister Netanyahu would have us believe. He keeps saying there will be nothing because there is nothing. The investigators certainly think that it's something, and it's something serious.
Now, is this investigation impacting the way Netanyahu is functioning as Prime Minister and leader of the country?
I think it's beginning to. He needs to take time to deal with his personal issues. I know that people close to him are quite concerned that he's not moving ahead with some plans that they were hoping to be dealing with at this time. And I think that time will tell just how deep this investigation will go, and then we'll know how much it'll impact his premiership.
Now, I understand that you spoke with an expert about this.
Not just an expert, one of the leading political scientists in the country, Professor Avram Diskin, who actually surprised me with his answer.
We have to distinguish between what the law says and what is the precedent in Israel. The law requires a person to step out of office only if he was convicted under certain conditions, which we can skip. So, one can continue to serve, no problem. But the precedent is that once there is an indictment, even before there is a final verdict, whatever the verdict might be, people do step out. And we had 3 cases of mayors in 3 different cities who were forced by the Supreme Court, actually against the law, to step out of office once there was an indictment against them. And the law concerning mayors was changed only after that verdict by the Knesset. It doesn't hold for Knesset members, for cabinet members, for the Prime Minister. It's another law, but that's the precedent. So I'm quite sure that if there is an indictment, that's the key point. If there is an indictment, I don't believe that Netanyahu can really continue and continue his service as an active politician. So that's the point. Okay, and once again, it's against the law, but that's a precedent. I think that's the point.
Finally, on that issue, some of those close to Netanyahu claim that the reason for this indictment at all is because of the media pressure on Attorney General Mandelblit, that he didn't really have evidence against Netanyahu. It's being forced on him. Does that sound like a credible concept?
I don't believe that the Attorney General would have enabled such an investigation without some real data. Okay, I don't think that that's the case. We have to remember that the present Attorney General used to be the secretary of the cabinet, very close to Netanyahu. His nomination was promoted by Netanyahu. I think it's irrelevant. So I think there is something really there. On the other hand, we have to remember that the Netanyahu family was really persecuted by the media in Israel. Okay, we had all these cases, really stupid cases, minor cases concerning the behavior of his wife, which is really irrelevant. You know, who cares about that as long as it doesn't affect the functioning of the Prime Minister, or as long as he's not directly involved. So Netanyahu was persecuted by the media. There is no question about that. The media in general, of course, there were exceptions, but generally tended to be very much against Netanyahu. I think that was very clear. On the other hand, I don't think that anything like a formal investigation by the police would have been started only on the basis of media pressure. I don't think that's the case. It's more serious than that.
Professor Avram Diskin, thanks so much for being with us on ILTV.
Thank you.
Now that the case has formally been opened against Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, the Justice Minister has already gone on record cautiously voicing support for legislative efforts to grant immunity to future prime ministers from prosecution. Steve, how could this happen?
Well, Likud Knesset member presented a bill. Clearly, the timing cannot just be a coincidence. The bill has just been submitted to the Knesset. It offers a sitting prime minister protection from certain types of police investigations and criminal prosecution. Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked said she believes that it should be considered so the nation's leaders would be able to focus on the handling of state affairs. The proposal comes from Likud member of Knesset David Amsalem, who says such legislation is already in place in France, and it allows its leaders to continue their terms unless they choose to resign or are voted out of office, before facing any criminal probes, other than security violations, sex crimes, or violence and drug-related offenses. Even if Israel passed such a law at this time, it can't be applied retroactively. Shaked seems to indicate this might be overcome if several other elements aimed at strengthening the premier's governability are added to the current bill. It's important to remember that Prime Minister Netanyahu is strongly maintaining his innocence of any illegal activity, and many of his supporters claim that the investigation stems from efforts in the media to oust him from office. The MK who introduced the new bill says he did so because he believes the ongoing probe is threatening Israel's democratic foundations.
The Hamas leaders of the Gaza Strip are responding with venom to Israel's declaration that it will no longer return the bodies of terrorists who die while committing their attacks. Hamas spokesman Fawzi Barham is firing back by claiming the decision is criminal and barbaric. He's also threatening that the decision will lead to negative consequences, possibly obstructing Israel's attempts to receive the remains of 2 IDF soldiers and 2 living Israeli civilians being held in Gaza. Jerusalem Security Cabinet just issued the directive to withhold the terrorists' bodies and also adopted a new plan of action for which no additional details have been provided. Both votes were unanimous. Israeli Staff Sergeant Oron Shaul and Lieutenant Hadar Golden were killed 2 years ago during the last conflict with Hamas. Terrorists seized both bodies in a cynical attempt to use them as bargaining chips to achieve future demands against the Jewish state. Hamas has never admitted that the soldiers are dead and instead has just released a propaganda video of a pretend birthday party for Shaul, mocking the Israeli government for failing to return the soldiers' remains for proper burial. Both of the Israeli male civilians apparently crossed into the Palestinian territory on their own volition, but are now believed to be in Hamas detention. A binary option is a financial option in which the payoff is either some fixed monetary amount or nothing at all. It's often a scam. The Prime Minister's office recently condemned binary options practices as unscrupulous and issued a call for the entire industry to be outlawed worldwide. Now, a powerful Knesset committee is heeding that call by taking unprecedented action against it here in Israel. The State Control Committee just convened for the first time to discuss strategies aimed at completely shutting down the widely fraudulent binary options industry. The coordinated effort will involve participation from the Justice Ministry, Attorney General, police, and other government officials. According to the chairman of the Israeli Securities Authority, who is attending the meeting, new legislation barring all Israel-based binary options operations from targeting anybody anywhere may be just weeks away. The Knesset committee is chaired by Knesset member Karine El-Harar, who credits Times of Israel editor-in-chief David Horowitz for leading the charge against the phenomenon. Horowitz has published a series of exposés on the matter in a relentless effort to bring attention to the dishonest business practice. It looks like the mystery behind the explosion of the $300 million Israeli Falcon rocket has finally been solved, according to Elon Musk's SpaceX company. Aaron, remind us what happened.
In early September, I think September 1st, the Falcon rocket was doing some routine fuel testing, and it exploded on the launch pad, taking out the $300 million satellite that it was carrying as its payload with it. So up until now, the company's been investigating what happened, and here's the report.
In a statement posted on the SpaceX company website, though, it seems the program is finally set to return to flights on January 8th. Following an investigation overseen by the FAA, the U.S. Air Force, NASA, and the National Transportation Safety Board, it was concluded that the September explosion was caused when, quote, one of 3 composite overwrapped pressure vessels, or COPVs, inside the second stage liquid oxygen tank failed, end quote. Both stages of the Falcon 9 use COPVs to store cold helium, which is used to maintain tank pressure. The Amos 6 satellite that was destroyed in September 1st's launch was intended to bring internet connectivity to sub-Saharan Africa and TV providers in Europe and the Middle East. It was built by Israel Aerospace Industries and owned by Spacecom Ltd., partnered with Eutelstat Communications in France.
Whether you've been in business for a minute or for a century, you know that fast data collection and analysis is very important. Well, one Israeli company has just made it as fast as the speed of light and as easy as asking the question out loud. Co-founder of SciSense, Adi Azaria, joins me in the studio today to talk about how his amazing product can change your company forever. Thanks so much for coming in.
Hi there, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. So tell us about this incredible innovation of yours.
First, SciSense allows company to basically simplify their complex data. Data today is ever growing, coming from everywhere. Our company helps other enterprises and medium businesses around the world to take all this data and make sense out of it, asking questions without any technical know-how. The last few years, data is growing and growing, and we found ourselves at a point where we need to simplify the process of bringing this data to the business people to make faster decisions, and also the need to simplify data consumption. This is how people ask the question and get them as soon as they need to.
Interesting. Now, how did you come up with this idea?
We started a project called SciSense Everywhere. Basically, it started with my son, where he had sleeping problems, and we tried everything from advisors, doctors, just name it. We tried, me and my wife, And suddenly, one day, I got a smart light. You know, this light that is you connect to the Wi-Fi and change colors. And I came to my son. His problem was he was waking up midnight and say, "Okay, Daddy, it's morning. I want to wake up." I said, "No, it's middle of the night. Just go back to sleep." And he never got back to sleep. So this light was my way to tell him, "Look, you choose the color, I choose the time, and basically when the color is red, that's what it shows. You can go out of your room and play around." And it worked like magic. This brought me to an idea of if it works so well on a little boy, why wouldn't it work on me or you in the same way? So we invented a project called Sight Everywhere, where basically people can sense data using light, touch, sound, and deploying it all around the world is the biggest enterprises. And suddenly we saw, once we put this light in open spaces, once we put these voice devices in offices.
Can you give us some hard examples when you say
definitely, that? Definitely. You have these healthcare industries where they cannot touch any kind of devices, clean environments. These guys are using Amazon Echo, for instance, to talk to the data. So instead of going to a screen and just touching mouse and all this dirty, stuff, you might find yourself talking to a device, Amazon Echo in this case, and ask your data questions like, how am I doing today? Who are my best clients? What is my next task? Etc. etc. On other locations, when we have sales teams, we deploy these smart lights, connected them to a KPI, a number, where basically this number is changing all day, like sales number, daily sales number, and suddenly you saw an increase of between 20% to 500% in performance in each team that we put it. It happened everywhere in the world. You know what? People don't like to see the red color. Once they see red, they just start to work harder and harder, and suddenly the green makes everybody happy. Using it in a team environment works like magic.
Well, it looks like you guys have a lot of products coming our way. This is incredibly interesting, and I'm excited to see how it impacts, businesses not only in Israel but around the world. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
It looks like there's going to be a lot more marijuana on college campuses, but it's not for the reason that you think. One Israeli university has just added the formal study of cannabis to its curriculum. There's actually a pretty tough syllabus. Students will learn the history and legality of using medical marijuana. Plus, they'll find out all kinds of interesting facts. Like the first person to ever identify the active ingredient of cannabis was a professor from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, who went on to make even more fascinating discoveries that captivated the world's attention. The course will focus on clinical trials in which cannabis has been effective in a realm of disorders, ranging from pain management for cancer victims, the easing of epilepsy and autism in children, and even help for psychiatric patients. A particular emphasis is placed on the many innovative developments achieved by Israeli startups, including methods to successfully cultivate crops. Anti-drug officials will offer lectures favoring medical applications of marijuana while discouraging any forms of recreational use, which is still illegal in the Jewish state. The course was designed and is being taught by a former senior Israeli health ministry official and is open to students who have completed at least 1 year in the field of medical administration. The topic is already popular on campus, and only 117 students out of the scores who applied could be accepted into the course. Do Israeli musicians and artists have an obligation to represent Israel when they perform abroad? Some may not think so, but Israeli superstar David Broza has made it a mission to use his music to inspire change, and we decided to find out why.
Music unifies people of all walks of life under one roof and under one sky. And once you're singing your human, compassionate feelings, just surge, and everybody becomes a brother. You sing in harmony.
Meet David Broza, often referred to as the Israeli Bruce Springsteen, and after our interview in his childhood home, my new idol.
A la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado el oído que en todo grillos y canarios, martillos, turbinas, ladridos, chubascos y la voz tan tierna de mi bien amado.
He's the definition of a true wandering Jew, a musician who has single-handedly recreated Israeli music through his Spanish, British, and American roots. Broza spent his high school years in England and Spain and has lived between New York and Tel Aviv for the past 30 years.
Well, growing up here, my mother was a musician. She's one of Israel's first folk singers, and I guess some of her influences was American folk. So there was always something about, and me, I was listening to jazz, rock and roll. I always wanted to go and find the roots of it all. So I gravitated towards the United States.
When it comes down to it, though, Broza says he's an Israeli through and through.
I'm a patriotic Israeli. I'm in love with this country. It's like no other country because it's still young and it's still inventing itself. And then everything is done from here, from this very room in Tel Aviv. So it doesn't really, whatever comes out, the immediate fabric of the sound that I create is actually very Middle Eastern.
But Broza is more than just a musician. Many would even call him a political activist who uses his music to call for change in the Middle East.
And most of the things I'm concerned with are socially oriented. I want the poor to be better off. I want the handicapped to be taken care of.
But it's undeniable that the need for peace in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been a major influence on his music. Broza's last album, called East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, was recorded entirely in the Palestinian Sabrine studio in East Jerusalem, where he brought together Israeli and Palestinian musicians through song.
If you care, then be proactive and don't just sit complacent and let.
But David Broza's music doesn't only take place here in Israel. Through his world tours and collaborations with top artists across the planet, the 61-year-old artist has in many ways become the face of Israel.
I'm Israeli. So if I am that, if I'm bringing Israel into a room through my music, so be it. I am. As a matter of fact, I sing in Hebrew. So I'm the Israeli singer-songwriter, and
That's you end up becoming, no matter where you are.
I've learned a lot through traveling.
His next stop is New York City, where he'll be performing his annual Christmas gig at the Town Hall. And believe me, it would be a mistake to miss out.
So January 7th promises to be one of those. For me,
You won't want to miss it. You won't want to miss it.
you ain't gonna miss it because you're gonna be there. And hopefully people who listen to my music get turned on to Israel and see a beautiful thing about it and gravitate towards it, whether they're Jewish or not Jewish, whether they're Zionist or they're not Zionist. I don't care. I just want them to feel positive because I love this place.
If you're interested in heading to a David Broza concert, go to davidbroza.net to buy tickets. All right, now for our Hebrew word of the day. Between shutting down Forex companies and even investigating the Prime Minister, we've been hearing a lot about Israeli police upholding their duty to the rule of law. So today's word is chok, meaning rule or law. You might not be surprised that the word for legal then is choki, and lo choki means not legal. Chokim or rules apply to just about everything. You can have chokim of conduct, chokim of the board game you're playing, chokim when you're in line at the DMV, and chokim just about everywhere else. Just don't let all the rules and laws pile up in your mind, as even the Dalai Lama would tell you, sometimes if you don't break the rules will break you. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast.
ILTV's weather forecast is sponsored by Adopt a Savta, taking care of Israel's lonely Holocaust survivors.
Tonight will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunderstorms. The temperatures are cold with a low of 46 or 8 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow should be more of the same, so make sure you bundle up. The high for the day is expected to be around 60 or 16 degrees Celsius. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.86 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at ILTV.tv. Thanks for watching and see you tonight.